Welcome back to the Centered on Buffalo podcast presented by Dano's Seasoning. Right now, you can get a 13-pack for just $65 of their premium seasonings at the link in the show notes if you use the code BUFFALO. So go check those out and also check out their new Outlaw seasonings. Those are incredible. Yum, yum. Get you some. This week's guest on the podcast is my partner on the radio broadcast, and that's Chris Brown. He's also the host of One Bills Live, and he's been at each and every training camp practice. So we're going to talk to him about what he's seen, what he's observed so far through the start of training camp. This is going to be a fun one. Thank you to everyone out there who has subscribed to the podcast lately. We appreciate you all. Thank you to the people that also share this podcast on social media. Share it with your friends. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the podcast. Go Bills.
Hit us up on all social media at The Buffalo Pod.
Chris, welcome back on the podcast, brother.
Good to be back. We're at ramp up time, man. Ramp up time.
We are. We're approaching it. I head out to Montana this week, get off the grid with the family, and then it's full bore from there. We got the first preseason game coming up, and I'm looking forward to that. I know you'll be at the red and blue game, blue, white, and red. What do they call that game?
The return of the blue and red.
Return of the blue and red. Generally,
is that an indication on how often you've been to that?
I have not made it up for that one yet. Hey, I'm so confident in us heading into the broadcast season. I don't necessarily feel like we need to warm up. Now, I know logistically and technically it's great for the crew to do it, but I feel pretty confident heading into the season for what we do with that one.
You'll be fine.
And usually the highlight that comes out of that is whatever helmet or uniform Josh Allen wears. He has worn blue, red, different stuff. And now it's confirmed that we are going to wear the red helmets for the final game of the season. And I got made fun of pretty good on social media for being as excited as I was about that. What are your thoughts on it?
I think it's cool. And credit the front office for kind of hearing the fans clamoring for it for the better part of the last 5 years. They've been asking for this. And I think it's a good send off, right? Like doing it in week 18, the final regular season game. I don't know if you could ask for, kind of a better place to stick the helmets on the guys again than in that last home game. People are going to be feeling nostalgic just walking to the stadium that day. So to throw the red helmets into the mix, I think is just really cool. And I got to tell you, like, I kind of got wind of it just because I had to prep some stories and stuff for BuffaloBills.com. So I kind of had an inkling as to what was going on. But man, did they keep that thing under wraps. Like, we were all sworn to secrecy. Steve got mad because I didn't really give him the 411, although I dropped hints, but he didn't pick up on them. So yeah, it's going to be a cool thing. And then the AFL uniforms are back too, which I did not have hide nor hair of an inkling of that. So just to see those two, and I know that Atlanta game is going to be really cool because I guess the Falcons are wearing their black and red throwbacks or red helmets with black jerseys. So that with the old AFL jerseys, which I know you got a chance to wear. I think that was your rookie season, right?
Yeah,
because
my first ever.
It was the Hall of Fame game and everything.
Yeah, so we wore them in the Hall of Fame game, I believe, which was the first game I ever played in an NFL game. That was a preseason game. And then our regular season, we started with those on at New England to start the year on Monday Night Football. So, yeah, I got my experience in those throwback uniforms. And then the rumors were that there was going to be like a gray and white type uniform for the Bills this year. That was what was being reported when everyone thought they weren't going to do the red helmets, right?
Yeah, so the rivalries uniforms are happening, and there was a teaser drop this week, and, they're giving the indication that it's going to be pretty frosty in appearance because, you got the whole winter motif, little Game of Thrones tease there with Josh's eyes turning blue in the video tease. So, yeah, I'm anticipating, some white, icy kind of look to these rivalry uniforms.
I like it. Let's mix it up a little bit.
I mean, we like the all whites when they go the stormtrooper look already,
right? With the white
so
face
I think
mask.
they're going to probably, I think they're going to take that to another level.
Yeah, I love it. All right, let's talk a little bit about training camp. Generally speaking, the defense gets off to a faster start to start training camp. It takes a lot more reps for the offense to fully get in sync. One guy on defense can make a play, and it's a win for the defense. On offense, generally 9, 10, 11 guys have to execute for us to have a good play. Has that been what's happened to start training camp, that the defense has been off to a faster start, or no?
I think it's been somewhat of a mixed bag here early. And I think part of the reason why is that secondary is trying to fit together. Bishop's been running with the ones here from the jump, and he and Rapp basically spent an entire offseason together at One Bills Drive. Like, my office is at the end of the field house. And so when I come into work, I literally walk into the field house to get into my office. And every morning I'm coming in and those two are on the field and they're just kind of walking through stuff. And, they did some film work together, working out together. Cole was complaining about how long it took to get to spring because every time we come in, he'd ask Steve and I, when's the weather changing? But suffice it to say, they spent a lot of time together in the off season because they want to kind of hit the ground running here. But I think some of that communication, Max Hairston getting worked in behind Trey with the ones here and there, there's a new guy with new communication again. So I think that has kind of led to more of a mixed bag look. Plus, you have a defensive line. It's crazy, Eric. You just watch these waves of guys coming on the field, and it's like, oh my God, they have like a 1 and a 1A D line. So you have last year's D line, which is basically Rousseau, Daquan, Ed, and AJ. And then you have the second group, which is essentially Hoyt, Ogunjobi, Dwayne Carter, and who's the third guy? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Bosa.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's not a second line. That's like a 1A D line.
Right.
But again, you got a lot of new pieces there too. So I think that's allowed the offense to have a couple of good days. I thought day 2 was really good for them. I would hand day 1 to the defense, where Christian Benford was the best player on the field. It was ridiculous. And then Friday, Taylor Rapp had 3 picks in practice, 2 of them in team sessions, one of them late in practice during the one-on-ones when they were running those late. So I think it's kind of gone back and forth pretty fairly through the first few days here.
Yeah, you also have one of the best offenses in the league with the league MVP and a lot of continuity and the same offense again with Joe Brady running the scheme. So I assumed that, the offense would be able to hold their own even at the beginning, especially with all the continuity that they have out there right now with all the returning guys. Let's take a moment to hear from one of our podcast partners, and that is our good friends at Waterboy. It has been a hot one this summer. I've been playing a bunch of golf, and I always make sure to pack with me some Waterboy hydration packets. They're clean. They do a great job of keeping you hydrated, giving you the electrolytes that you need each and every day. So go check them out at waterboy.com. The link is in the show notes, and use the code EWOOD and you'll get 20% off your order. All right, one of the guys on offense, James Cook, he shows up for training camp. He's saying the right things, I would say, right now. Has he looked like himself out there, though, attitude-wise and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, sudden and explosive. You can see it in Friday's practice. Well, the days run together. It was either Thursday or Friday. He catches a swing pass out in the left flat. Now he gets a great block from Reggie Gilliam, but they had the defense completely messed up on that. So it's basically one defender on that side of the field. Gilliam blocks him, and he is down the sideline. And I think in a real game, it's a 50-plus yard touchdown. But yeah, even working his way through the hole, he's patient when he needs to be patient. I mean, we talk about it on the broadcast all the time. He knows when to employ patience on a run and let the hole open or materialize. And then he knows this thing's closing quick. I got to hit it. He just has really good decision-making and feel for when holes are opening or closing. And I think we've seen that early on. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes, Eric, because I thought Brandon Beane, when he spoke to the media this week, was as forward as he has been in describing their desires as a team. You hear teams all the time say, "Oh, we'd love to sign him, draft, draft, develop, re-sign, that whole thing." But I thought Brandon was very, very self-effacing in saying, we're talking to them. We'd like to work something out. And this is a guy that has said before, we don't like to negotiate in the media, but I think he was trying to give us as much as he could, without compromising negotiations, shall we say.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, his progression through his career from being drafted as maybe a scat back, your receiving threat, to being one of the most natural runners in the NFL has been fun to watch. And as an offensive lineman, a former offensive lineman, I'll say, I just really appreciate his pace that he runs with. It's not always slam it downhill. He waits for it to open up. He can make guys miss. He's an O-lineman's dream to have back there. All right, so a guy that, took some criticism last year from fans, but also the front office after the season was Keon Coleman. I understand he had one rough day where he had a few drops, but how impressive has he been at the start of camp so far?
Yeah, he was having a rough first day because Christian Benford was covering him. And Benford was like knocking every pass out of the air. He had like 6 pass breakups the first day. It was ridiculous. So Keon really was trying to develop opportunities, but I thought that was great work for him because that's how he's going to have to try to make plays in traffic because, as you know, he's not a separator. So I thought that was a good first test for him. And yeah, Friday was a tough day for him. He did get open. He did get separation, and he had 3 drops by my count in the practice. He also had a 60-yard catch and run for a touchdown. So you got to kind of take the good with the bad. And I'll say this too. It's early and the pads are still not on. And I think Keon's full game doesn't really reveal itself until the pads are on. And now you're really boxing people out, jockeying for position. And I think that's when we're going to see more plays by him show up.
For sure. Look, Christian Benford, what a deal we got him for this offseason. When you look around at what some of the other top corners in the NFL are making, we know he's solidified at quarterback 1. CB2 across from him, you have Trey White and Max Harrison rotating in. Has either of them separated themselves in any way so far?
I think it's early. And Trey, he says it's good to have his legs back. And I think we all saw he wasn't the Tre'Davious White that we're used to seeing, whether it was, his last year in Buffalo where he was, his performance was marred by injury, or even spending time with the Rams and the Ravens. But, I remember Brandon saying back in January or February or March, right when they signed him, he said you could see it coming back for Trey late in the season while he was with the Ravens. I was watching him in individual position drills the other day, and I still feel like there's a little bit of a tick in his plant and drive. And I'm trying to remember if it's his Achilles leg or his ACL leg that is the reason for that. And I go all the way back to watching Willis McGahee coming back from his catastrophic knee injury with the Bills. He didn't play his whole draft year of 03, but in 04, there he is in training camp, and he's big, he's fast, and all of that stuff. But there was still like this little hitch in his gait when he was running with the ball. And I feel like there's a little hair of that with Tre'Davious right now. I'm confident it'll kind of work its way out of his reps as he goes through. I got to sit and talk with him a little bit, and because I'm curious if that's a mental hurdle thing that he's still thinking about, or if he even knows he's doing it. And again, it's super subtle, but he does it in one direction, not in the other on his plant and drive. So these are the little stupid things I obsess over, Eric. So sorry to get off on a tangent there.
I love it.
But basically the way they've gone is Tre'Davious has gone like 3 or 4 reps with the ones, and then he'll rotate out. Hairston will come in and get the rest of whatever their first team group is, and then he'll stay on with the 2s and get another 3-4 reps, whatever it is. And Hairston, it was funny, day 1, it was all red zone, and Hairston is in a zone coverage, and he's in the exact spot where he's supposed to be in the zone coverage, and Kincaid comes into his zone, and Josh just fires a dart, and Hairston knows it, but he sees it like a millisecond late. And so he goes to stick his arm over there to try to get a hand on the pass, but Dalton already has it. And he's like jumping up and down, frustrated, like I'm in the right spot and I'm a millisecond late. But to see that on day 1, like millisecond late on day 1, I think is a good sign. And sure enough, later in the practice, he got a pass breakup on a play in the back of the end zone for red zone. So you almost kind of within one practice, you saw him get better. So I think that's encouraging for him going forward.
Yeah, and to your point there, Colt Bishop misses all of training camp, or almost all of training camp last year with the shoulder injury, and those are the reps that he needed as a rookie to be able to get that experience and not have to get those experience, in a game like we saw him have struggles early on and then play better at the end of the season. And so that's great to hear about Max Harrison there. All right, so one of the most fun storylines for us and throughout the preseason will likely be the backup quarterback battle, because we probably won't see a whole lot of Josh in these preseason games. Mike White, from my understanding, is going in first behind Josh, then Trubisky, and then Shane Buechele getting some reps. How do you see that playing out right now?
Yeah, it's been tough to discern and say one guy has definitively performed better than another. And I got to tell you, they've kept the reps relatively even no matter who goes in first, even for Buechele, which I know it surprised a couple of media members to see him getting almost as many reps as Trubisky and White, because I think a lot of people just assumed, well, it's down to White or Trubisky as the second QB. And there's a very good chance that's going to be the case. But I think there's a lot of respect in that locker room for Buechele. So, it wouldn't stun me, because we've seen them do this, right? 2 quarterbacks on the active and then practice squad QB. And I would anticipate they're probably going to do that again. But no, nobody has really separated to this point. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I think we're going to have to use the preseason games to really gauge that and try to determine some separation. And hopefully they can work it in such a way where they can get each of those guys playing with the 2s for an extended period of time, because you don't want to throw a guy out there against 3s because the defense he's going against isn't as good, and the guys he's playing with theoretically aren't as good. And so you want to try to get as even evaluation as you can. So hopefully they can work that out.
For sure. And at this point, you kind of know what you have in Trubisky. So getting Mike White those reps to see if he can supplant him as that backup, I'd expect to see him get a lot of work with the 2s in the preseason to see how he looks out there, his comfort level in Joe Brady's offense. When you came in mid-year last year, it's tough to, learn a system and a scheme and get any reps really during the season, because he's running the show team.
I will say the one thing that stands out just physical skill set wise is White clearly has the best arm of the 3. There's some zip, when he wants to stick it in somewhere like a tight window or something. So his arm strength is evident. And I think that's why he kept getting chances younger in his career in the league. And this one was what surprised me. So the quarterbacks are all standing out there before practice and they're all talking with Joe and everything. And I'm standing there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't see Josh's helmet, because Mike White's standing next to him and he is just as tall as him. Now, he's not as thick as Josh, but he's every bit as tall as him. He's like a legit 6'5" quarterback. And I guess, I don't know, I just kind of lost sight of that until I saw it on the field.
Yeah, he's a big boy, that's for sure. All right, so the Bills are going to need their young defensive linemen that they drafted to step up early in the season, especially with the suspensions early on for Ogunjobi and Hoyt. The buzz that I'm hearing is that of the rookies, the guy making the most impact right now is TJ Sanders.
Yeah, he flashed in practice the other day. I couldn't believe how quick he was in the backfield on a pass play. So I want to get this right. He one arm stabbed the guy and then just clubbed him with his right hand and just swam over him. And the lineman was barely out of his stance. So he was just, I don't even know if he got to his second step, and he was in the backfield past him already. We're not seeing that on every play. And again, pads are not on yet, so you don't really see O-line, D-line games on full display. But just that quickness, I don't know. It looked like he just hyperspaced to the backfield, and he was there, and he flushed Mike White out of the pocket, and he had to roll out and make a check down throw. Those are the kinds of things that I think they're hoping to see a lot more of from TJ Sanders. So the consistency isn't there yet, as he's kind of learning the scheme and everything and how to play off guys next to him. But you're seeing those flashes here in the early going.
Yeah, that's exciting. And that's the type of guy that you draft him where you did to be a splash play type of defensive lineman. And fingers crossed that he'll be that early on in his career for the Bills. All right. I've read about one little skirmish, Alec Anderson involved. Not surprising. Friend of the podcast, friend of mine, reps the number 70. Like to see him. He's a tone setter, whether it's practice or games. Has it been pretty chippy out there so far?
No, actually, it's been pretty chill. There's really only been one super hot day, and that was Thursday of week 1 of camp. And I know there's some heat in the forecast for week 2. So we'll see. But it was Friday that it happened, and it wasn't as nearly as humid. And I think it was the undrafted rookie Hayden Harris that kind of got in a skirmish with him. And all I know is after it was done, Hayden Harris did not have his helmet. It had to be returned to him afterwards. So yeah, we know all about Alec, and you need that edge. Every offensive line needs an edge guy like that, just like every team, every team needs a guy that can get under the skin of the other team. And because I don't know, you can speak to this better than I can. I mean, you guys had Richie, who was a crazy man. People aren't either A, messing with that guy, or B, if he does get into a skirmish, everybody else, their hair is standing up on the back of their neck, and now they're ready to put a little bit more, into the next play call. So, yeah, I think they like having an edge guy like that.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, Richie was that to an extent. When he came to the Bills, older in his
He
career,
had mellowed a little, right?
He had mellowed some, but Richie's not a guy that you want to get into a skirmish with, whether it's locker room, like goofing around wrestling, whether it's on the field in a fight.
Yeah.
You do not want to mess with Richie Incognito. I actually used to get in a ton of fights early in my career, and Doug Barone actually was the one that said, "Hey, buddy, you're our team captain. You can't be getting in fights all the time at practice." I'm like, I just play to or through the whistle, and it ticks people off, and that's what happens. But I calmed down on it later in my career. One, just trying to be a leader and a better teammate.
Right.
Also, it is so draining when you get in a wrestling match out on the field, and then you have to go right back into the plays. It's very draining. It can be pretty tiring. Quick side note, funny story. One year in our offensive line meetings, I told the guys before we headed to our first practice, I said, "Hey, I'm just going to let you know, I've never seen an O-lineman get in a fight in training camp and then not make at least the practice squad," which was a lie. And I was joking. And it looked like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. We were doing one-on-one pass rush, and it was just fight after fight. I was like, guys, I was kidding. I thought you guys would understand that I was joking, but yeah, we had to tone the boys back a little bit after that one. But we had.
You remember which camp that was?
That was Marone was there. It might have been the longest training camp in history.
And when they were renovating the stadium.
Yeah, we had a young guard out of Houston. He was one, and then Switzer was out of Western Michigan, I believe. And they were getting in fights like the whole time, long shots to make the team. And I had to tell him afterwards, like, buddy, I was just kidding. You actually probably have a better chance of getting cut if you keep fighting people every day. So we had some fun with that one. All right. It always amazed me during my career how many fans would come out to watch us practice, especially when at times we weren't very good. Sometimes we didn't have a lot of star power on the team, but the fan support at St. John Fisher was always incredible. How's Bills Mafia been showing up every day out of camp?
Yeah, I know that, this is going to probably stir up memories in your head when I say this, but the most interesting part is right at the beginning of the practice session. You're like 3-4 minutes away from practice beginning, and, guys are trickling through the tunnel there of the grandstand, and like, you can tell certain people are coming through, and because they're getting ovations and whatever, players that are easily recognizable, whether it's DeMar, who gets a nice ovation every time, Dawson Knox comes out, he gets, a nice response. And then, and then there's Josh, which is just a completely, like, it's Hollywood level.
Right.
Thursday, I was walking after our morning press conference, which I think it was Joe Brady. I was just walking down the same way the players do to get to the field for practice. And as I'm getting closer and closer to the fans, everybody's screaming Josh. And I'm just like, okay, I know who's about 20 yards behind me walking right now.
Yeah.
And then, he gets out in front of the grandstand, and, the place is going bananas. So it's just kind of cool to hear that. Like, these guys are walking out for practice,
right,
and the fans are just geeked up. So, and I think coupled with that is the fact that, this is a team with a lot of expectations. I think fans are hoping the last year in Highmark that it can be, sent off on a high note. And Josh has even said as much. He said it'd be nice to send that stadium out with a bang, and he didn't say it, but he was clearly insinuating, like, hey, hosting an AFC title game wouldn't be bad for the last game in the stadium.
Yep.
And advancing to a Super Bowl.
That's the script. That's the script we want. And I can say for all the fans that are listening that have attended practices, it juices us up when you're cheering for us going out to practice, when you're there in attendance, like just seeing that, it can get monotonous during training camp. And then you walk out to the field and you feel the energy of the crowd. You're like, all right, it's go
Yeah.
time. Here we go. When it's a silent practice at, one Bills drive, sometimes you don't get that same excitement. You don't get the juices flowing as much because there's no fans around. So thank you to Bills
Right.
Mafia and all that show up for those training camp practices. I truly mean it. All right. How noticeable has the Hard Knocks crew been around training camp?
There are a lot of them. The budget for that show has got to be pretty high because I have never seen so many boom mics in my life. And for our listening audience that doesn't know what a boom mic is, it's basically a big fuzzy microphone on the end of a long stick. And they've got like 15-foot boom mics with every camera that's around the field. And I've only really seen the cameras, obviously, at practice. I haven't gone, in the meeting rooms or anything. And they'll have at least 4 or 5 cameras around the field. I'm sure they've got some up in the air somewhere too in the towers. But on the field, there's like one camera person, another person lugging all the gear, and then a third person who's just running around with the giant boom mic, just swinging it over every group discussion that's going on. One of the more noticeable ones, they finished a team period. The 4 quarterbacks come to the sideline and because they were running a special teams drill, and they're talking with Joe, and they're on a whiteboard just going over a couple of things, and they're right on top of them, and the boom mic's like right in the middle of the conversation. So I know August 5th is the first episode, so I'm very curious to see it, because I got to be honest, I haven't really watched a lot of those Hard Knock shows because it wasn't the Bills. And we're busy enough during training camp, but obviously we're all going to be glued to it now. So I'm very curious to see the kind of access they've got.
Yeah, I've generally watched Hard Knocks each year. I mean, the production value is incredible. Guys used to make fun of me during training camp when I would watch Hard Knocks. I'm watching training camp of somebody else while we're in training camp, but I'm an NFL fan. Like, I enjoy it. And at times I got buddies that are on different teams and I want to see them on the show or see if they're featured. So I always enjoy Hard Knocks and I'm really excited about it. I know there's probably mixed feelings within the organization about it being featuring the Bills, but I'm looking forward to it. And honestly, I wanted it in Buffalo throughout my career. I just felt like, not even myself personally, although it could have elevated, some of my popularity, maybe it helps for Pro Bowl voting or whatever. But guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who now the nation knows how awesome that dude is, but didn't really know it as much while he's playing. A Kyle Williams, who should have been one of the biggest superstars in the league, but plays in a small market, not super outspoken. He's not going to catch headlines with social media posts or whatever it may be. Like, I would have loved for those guys to get, the spotlight on a Hard Knocks episode.
Right.
All right, we're going to get
that would have been cool.
Yeah, we're going to get to the rapid fire questions brought to you by Dano Seasoning. Number 1, what's your favorite restaurant to hit when you're up in Rochester?
I mean, Pittsford Pub is hard to turn down. It's right around the corner. So just from a convenience standpoint, and the pub food's good. The beer is good. So yeah, that's an easy one just because of proximity. And I mean, I've probably been going to that place for over 20 years now. It's just right around the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, we can walk home if we need to, walk back to the dorms if we need to.
I won't name names, but I know that there was a few coaches and coaching staffs over the years that really liked the Pittsford Pub. And, that it was, I would hear from other people like, man, I got some great stories from whoever it may be. I remember someone hung out with Ed Reed in there one night when he was coaching with the Bills and said how cool that was to hang with him. So popular spot up there in Rochester.
Yeah.
Who's been the chirpiest player on the field during training camp so far for the Bills?
I mean, there's been a couple of guys. I don't think anybody's really kind of made a point of like jaw jacking a whole lot.
Yeah, you don't have Jordan Phillips there this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like who even just really caught my attention. Because again, here's the other part of it. They got the music going on the sidelines and it's right behind where we stand as the media. So even if a guy is jaw jacking, it's hard to hear anybody on the field doing that. I don't really have anybody right now. I'm sorry on that one.
Okay, we'll report back. We can report back.
Yeah, I'll get back to you on that one.
All right. So all the players talk about, what they're looking to improve on in the offseason with their game. Was there a specific focus for you personally to improve your game on the broadcast this year?
Yeah. So only because we hear this a lot, mention the score more often, because I got to remind myself that people aren't listening wire to wire all the time. Somebody might be having a house party for the game and somebody forgot the ice. So they got to run out to the store, and for 10 minutes of the game, they're listening in their car. Well, I should give the score at least twice in that 10 minutes that they're in the car listening to the game. So that was the first thing that I put on my list. The second one was, when you have the chance, paint the picture a little bit more when you have a big moment coming. So, for example, Tyler Bass's 61-yard field goal to beat the Dolphins. Now, we painted the picture. We said how long a kick it was. And I think we also talked about the conditions that he was kicking in at the time. But the fact that it had the potential to give the team the lead with what would amount to just a few seconds to play, just nitpicking here, but maybe describe that scene a little bit better. Maybe say what the fans are doing. Is everybody standing for this? Those kinds of setup things when you have the time to fit it in, which I know isn't often, as you well know. That's on the list too.
I like it. That's good stuff. All right, last one for me. This preseason, as we see these preseason games unfold, there's generally someone that stands, a Joe Andreessen of last year, an undrafted guy that ends up making the team. Who would be your pick right now for someone that throughout the preseason we're saying, oh my gosh, here's the surprise breakout of the preseason for the Bills?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of put him on my sleeper list. I think Jaylen Virgil is gonna, he's still a name that I don't think a lot of he's not a household name, even with, some dedicated Bills fans. And he added 4 to 5 pounds of lean muscle mass through his shoulders and chest. So he's trying to get stronger as well. And I really felt like he and Tyrell Shavers, who have been battling so much, for the last couple of years to crack that 53-man roster, I really thought Virgil was going to have a chance, and he still might. And Shavers, unfortunately, got injured in practice on Sunday. So hopefully that's not a serious one, because he was actually getting reps with the ones here and there through the first week of training camp. So hopefully he doesn't miss much time, because I think he's got a shot too. And that long, lanky frame that Shavers has is not in plentiful supply in the receiving corps. I mean, Shakir, Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, they're all like the same kind of guy, jitterbug slot guy. And Keon is really like the only huge stature guy they have. So I think if Shavers can really develop some consistency to his game, I think he's going to get a lot of consideration. But I like Virgil too, just because I think he plays bigger than he is. So those were kind of two guys that I think, if they can really, stitch it together in the preseason games, are going to give themselves a better shot than maybe people realize.
Yeah, I like that pick. And he would have been on my list as well. Chris, I can't thank you enough for the time hopping on the podcast. Can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks. Enjoy the rest of training camp. Let's hope the Bills stay healthy, get a lot of work done up there. Looking forward to Hard Knocks, but really looking forward to getting back on the mic with you again this year, brother.
Yeah, me too. Can't wait to do it.
Awesome. Thanks, brother.